Welcome to Sweethearts or Rivals. I'm Charla.
I'm Justin.
What's on our table today?
They Who Were Eight.
They Who Were Eight is a game that we received as a review copy from Passport Game Studios.
Nice.
So we'd like to say a great big thank you to them for giving us this copy.
Thank you.
And this game is a game that you can play with 2 to 4 players in about 15 to 20 minutes.
Yes.
And they recommend that you can play this game with people that are aged 12 and up.
There you go. Right, so what do you think of the components of They Who Were Eight?
There's not many components to this game, but the components are of very high quality. The tokens you have to put on your pieces are the glass tokens.
Yep.
Extra durable.
Nice.
They're never going to wear out. And then the cardboard pieces that they have for your god tiles are very nice thick cardboard.
Yep.
Very durable. And then the cards are the nice big, almost tarot size cards.
Yeah.
And they are a medium cardstock, and they're a nice smooth, they have a linen finish, but they're kind of not plastic.
Yeah.
But
Not
there's a
thick
shiny
linen.
layer on them.
Yep.
So they're very durable as well.
Yeah.
And the art's really nice too. The game has quite an abstract feel.
Yes.
And it's got quite abstract art. So I find it's a nice combination there.
Yep. And that kind of works with the theme of these gods that aren't like characters. They're more like they represent a kind of ideal.
Or philosophy kind of. Yeah.
So they boil these really big, complex ideas down to just a very simple artistic expression, which is interesting and neat, but makes sense when you're talking about like gods.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
What do you think about the strategery, which is a word that we use for strategy, tactics, and luck?
I'm actually going to have to answer that twice in 2 separate conversations, because the strategy, tactics, and luck for the 2-player game is very different than when you have 3 or 4 players, which we've actually played this with more than 2 players, which a lot of the times we don't.
Yes, but we played it with 2, and we felt like we were missing something, and we thought, I really, 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 really think it would be way better with 4.
Yep.
And we were right.
Yes, we were. So when you're playing a 2-player game, all the cards that say you have to play the card on another player, you have no choice of which player you have to play that card on, because there's just one other player. So suddenly, the whole time you're playing, it's just a lot of random luck. Can I get the trickery card over and over again and load the other player's god with all of the glory and not get it on mine? And in the playthrough, that's what happened. I got it a whole bunch of times, and then it kind of disappeared for a little while, and then right when Charla needed it, it came out and won her the game.
Yeah, that
Spoilers.
was awesome.
Yeah. But did that happen through awesome skill?
My shuffling skill, maybe.
Maybe.
But I can't count cards or anything. So
Yeah.
I don't have any shuffling skill, so no.
Yeah.
You're right. It
So,
was random.
is there a lot of like really good strategy and tactics? Not really, no. Most of it is you just get your 3 cards, you look at them and go, well, that would be stupid, that would be stupid, this is the least stupid or possibly a good card to play.
Yeah.
And then, oh, I can't give the other player that card because that will actually help them, so I'm going to keep it. There's not a lot of decisions, it's just I hope I keep getting the trickery cards so I can beat you. Unfortunately. However, once you add 3 or 4 players, and you get a lot of the cards you have to play on another player's gods, suddenly you have all these choices.
You get you have 3 other players that you can look at.
Yeah.
And it's always which pantheon is winning.
Yeah.
Or who's really close to changing the tide.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, of course, because most of the cards are play on other players, and then instead of I play a card, you play a card, well, okay, that was whatever. Suddenly you have to wait like 3 other turns, and 3 other cards drastically change the flow of glory and infamy. And then suddenly you have a very interesting tactical game with lots of good choices.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of long-term strategy, although when you look at the special powers your gods have at the beginning of the game, you can kind of think, at one point in the game, is it going to be really beneficial for me to use that power? and have that in your mind. So that is a bit of a strategy, but most of it is straight up tactics with the luck of the card draw.
Right.
Yeah. So as soon as you go away from the 2-player game, the game becomes very interesting.
I think it should have been labeled a 3 or 4-player game.
Yes, it really should have. The 2-player game, there is really nothing there, unfortunately. Yeah. So, what about the complexity?
Well, it's an interesting concept for the game because you're looking at not just one player has the most or one player has the least. It's like these 2 players combined. And if they have the most points, this is the pantheon that wins. But I want the least points.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit backwards thinking because usually we always want the most points. Then there's the gold R2 and the gray R1.
Yeah.
So it's always to keep doing that math in your head between the 2 pantheons.
Yeah.
Which is a little bit easier in the 2-player game because there's less pantheons to keep track of.
True.
But in the 4-player game, there's a lot of stuff going on between, because you've got a lot of pantheons.
There's a lot to keep track of.
Yeah. And then the cards themselves you would think are pretty straightforward, but because then you've got to analyze all those pantheons, like in the 4-player game, it can be really tricky to pick your card because all of a sudden you've got to do all this math.
A lot of math, like all the time.
Yeah.
Because it's constantly changing, which means you have to redo your math. Yeah.
So I find that's the only complicated part. When you have a higher player count and you're analyzing all these different pantheons and you're trying to do all this quick math and then you're like trying to analyze, I have 3 cards. Which card is going to influence those pantheons the best?
Yeah.
It can be a little tricky.
And that's kind of where the skill of the game comes in when you're playing it. When you got like the 4-player with all the pantheons, keeping an eye on everything that happens and constantly and instantly readjusting or reanalyzing where the flow of power is going so that you can win.
Right.
Yeah.
And then also when you have 4 players, there's 8 of these god powers to keep track of too.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to forget one that's really going to benefit a player and then play right into their hand.
Yeah.
By accident.
Yep. Nice.
What do you think about the playability?
Playability. Okay, mechanics versus theme. The mechanics and the theme blend well together because you're telling stories as a bard about the different gods and trying to influence how much the people love the different gods and pantheons. So that's kind of neat. And again, because it's all gods and symbology, all the stories are just like that, like the trickery of. And there's no like real long story. You just that god just tricks someone. So very symbolic, which is neat. And then the idea that you want the pantheon with the most glory, but the most humble, to connect better with the people. Again, is this tricky game thing, but makes sense thematically, which is kind of cool. How it scales with the number of players, we've already talked a lot about that. The game works with more than 2 players quite well. And with 2 players, doesn't really work much at all.
Yeah.
Unless you just like a incredibly random game that doesn't do much. Which some people do.
Although the game length, when we played the 4-player game, I don't know if it was because we were just teaching them, but it was a lot longer with 4 players than it is with 2.
Yeah. As for the replayability, there are 9 different god tiles with 9 different powers. So even with a full 4-player complement, there's still one god that's always out. So that's going to make it replayable, especially if you are getting used to how the cards manipulate and kind of counting the deck a little bit. Knowing how your 2 god powers are going to help you in the best way.
Right.
So that might be a little bit of replayability and add a little bit more strategy to the game.
Right. And there's quite a few of these cards too.
Yep.
So even in a 4-player game, you're not going to see every single card each time.
Yeah.
I mean, you see the cards less or sometimes more frequent depending on how the shuffling goes in a 2-player game.
Yeah.
But it's nice there's a lot of these as well.
And the fact that at the end of every turn, the discard pile is immediately shuffled in. So, which means you could see the trickery card over and over and over again, turn after turn after turn.
Right. And then never have a card that you can play on yourself, because it always ends up at the bottom of the deck.
That's right.
Yeah.
All right. So, does They Who Were 8 have the awesomeness or the cuteness?
I would have to say this game is more awesome than cute.
More awesome than cute.
I mean, the art is nice, but it's stark and straight to the point.
Yes.
Like, there's not much cuteness going on with the art.
Even though there's not a lot of cuteness, I do think that's awesome.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not a cute theme either. It's more of an awesome theme.
This is true.
Right.
Right. Are we going to trade it or keep it?
I'm not sure. I'm thinking it could possibly become a trader.
Yes. I think it's going to become a trader, even though the 4-player game is very intriguing.
Mm-hmm.
How often are we going to play it as a 4-player game?
We don't have a lot of 4-player game nights.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So because it doesn't work as a 2-player game, I'm thinking it's a trader.
It could be.
Yep. Did we finish it as Sweethearts or Rivals? We finished it as
Rivals.
Sweethearts.
Really?
Yep.
I just want to win. I want my god to be winning the most humbly. Really badly.
In a 4-player game, absolute rivalry. In a 2-player game, whether I win or lose, I don't feel any connection with.
You feel like you don't have any control.
Yeah. I didn't really do that. That just kind of happened.
Yeah, I suppose.
Yeah.
I can see your point.
So, not that I'm all like, yay, we're sweethearts, we had so much fun. I just don't feel any rivalry.
I see.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Right on. That is They Who Were 8.
Thanks for watching.
Thanks a lot.
We'll see you in the next video.
Laters.